TLV One-on-One, bringing you interviews and views behind the headlines.
This is TLV1 broadcasting from Tel Aviv on TLV1.FM. You're listening to TLV One-on-One. I'm Yael, Wissner, Levy. Ahead of the March 17th elections, we'll be holding one-on-ones with members of Knesset and new candidates seeking election, hailing from the wide spectrum of parties vying for influence in the 120-member-strong Israeli parliament. Today we'll be speaking with current member of Knesset, Rabbi Dov Lipman, who is slated to run with Yesh Atid, the party led by Yair Lapid. Member of Knesset Lipman, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Yael. Good to be here.
So your party head has placed you in the 17th slot, what you were in the previous elections, but a quick look at the polls shows that's not really a very realistic spot for now.
I recall about 5 days before the last elections opening one of the newspapers and seeing that we were polling at 8 and understanding that there was absolutely no possibility of me serving as a member of Knesset. And then just 5 days later, there we were celebrating 19 seats. The polls in Israel are notorious for not reading the map properly, and there are numerous reasons for that. And our internal polling is actually higher, and I have no doubt that as we get towards the elections, Yesh Atid, which has been running a very solid, good, clean campaign, will continue to rise in the polls, and my spot will very quickly become very realistic to everyone.
But while you're campaigning now, in the field, as it said, these polls do show that there is a very big audience for left versus right. Is there a place in the Israeli political spectrum right now for a center party, quote unquote, which is what Yesh Atid calls itself?
Well, I think what happened when elections were first announced was it very quickly became Prime Minister Netanyahu or someone else. And that was very much a right versus left type of theme, which made people flock towards either one of those extremes. But now it starts getting down to crunch time about issues. And since elections were announced, we were out day after day, night after night, talking about the issues, what we have accomplished in a year and 8 months, what we want to continue to be able to do, and our platform. And our platform is out there, it's very clear. And I think people at a certain point, it's not just about one camp or another camp, but it's about the issues that impact their lives. And I think we're being very successful at bringing that message. So I don't think it's a question of left, right, or center. I think it's a question of people realizing they have to make a decision, what's the best party to represent their needs and their lives here in Israel, and that's what we present to people, and that's why I think we'll be very strong.
Speaking about what the people are looking for in elections, many have almost historically said the elections all are about security. And we've seen in the past elections that's not really so. It is mostly people are going to vote about socioeconomic issues. How is Yesh Atid going to address, issues such as Israel having the highest poverty rate in the OECD, among the countries with the largest wage gaps and so forth?
So there's no doubt that question is part of the reason why we were catapulted into office. I think people saw us as a party that would try to tackle and address these issues. And I personally think that we have. I think that we came into office and there was a 40 billion shekel deficit. So the first budget we passed was very much to target that. And we made cuts all across the board, knowing that would make us unpopular, but we did that. But then we built a 2015 budget, which is a budget which exists. It's not a campaign promise. It exists in my office in the Knesset with a more than 10 billion shekel increase to all the social ministries, to health, to welfare, to education. And we were able to do all of that without raising taxes. And you do that by attacking corruption. And basically in government, there's money everywhere which you can take and bring it into the government budget. So we have that on the table. It's a plan. It's not, again, 2 years ago when I was campaigning, I might have felt somewhere in my mind that maybe these are campaign promises. Here it's a budget which exists that we built for a year to really attack the cost of living in Israel and enable people to live here in a more comfortable way. So our plan is there. It's very clear. It's in that 2015 budget. And I'll also say, in the year and 8 months that we were in office, we began the process of putting forth our plan for housing and for food prices and the like. That's something which takes time.
But here's the thing, Yesh Atid had, the silver platter was given to the party head, Yair Lapid. He was the finance minister, and he promised many things in the last campaign, which led to the overwhelming 19 seats. That didn't really come out. So
I remember when Yair sat with us when it came to the first budget that we had to pass within 2 months of getting into office, and he said, guys, we are going to plummet in the polls because we're going to do what's responsible. We could easily increase the deficit even further and go into further debt as a country, or we could do what's responsible. He said, we're going to take the first budget and do what's responsible, and that'll put us in a position economically where we can present a 2015 budget, which is the social-minded budget that we promised to the people. Now, having said all of that, looking back back, over the course of the last year and a half, food prices overall in Israel did go down 3%, while in all the OECD countries it went up at least 4%. Again, that's not enough. Housing prices in October, for the first time in 7 years, went down by 1%. Not enough at all. We want to be able to continue that. And most importantly, every single person's utility bills this month, electricity bills for everyone in the country, are going down 10%. These are things which take time. You have programs that you put into place that take time to take hold. We have absolutely no doubt that if we're given the full 4 years to implement our plans, that we will see a dramatic change in terms of cost of living in Israel.
What has Yesh Atid learned from this year and 8 months? And maybe more politically speaking, last time we saw almost a bizarre bond between Yesh Atid and Bayit Yehudi, the Jewish Home. Who would you rule out sitting with in a coalition government this time around?
So the truth is, sitting with the Bayit Yehudi and that pact which was made to keep the ultra-Orthodox parties out of the government, I don't view that as a mistake. I look at what we were able to accomplish because of that. We passed the draft law, which sets out goals per year for Haredim, for ultra-Orthodox who will serve, and we passed those goals for the first year. But even more importantly, our focus was on employment, and there's a 300% increase in ultra-Orthodox who are leaving yeshiva or kollel, meaning they were being supported by the state, and now they're going to actually go and work, and general studies in the ultra-Orthodox schools. That happened because of the pact with the Bayit Yehudi, and therefore I don't regret it at all.
Would you rule out sitting with anyone else?
We don't rule out sitting with people. We rule out policies, meaning if the ultra-Orthodox parties are going to say we have to turn the clock back and no more focus on employment, no more focus on general studies, we will not allow that. We will not sit in a government which is going to roll that back. Governments that aren't going to continue making progress on religion and state. Governments which aren't going to continue our fight against corruption, which we see the results over the last 2 months in the country. What happens when you allow a government to run without transparency and without fighting the corruption? Right. So those are the red lines. We want to continue doing what we've been doing. A lot of people don't even realize how much we accomplished, and that's something which you can look. Transparency is on the website. All the reforms that we were able to accomplish over a year and 8 months, and our message to people is: look at what we've done. We've done more in a year and 8 months for the country than parties have done for years in government, because we're very active. All of us joined the Knesset because we wanted to do. We're not interested in the position just for the position. We wanted to make a difference. We've been doing that. We want to keep doing that. So we don't rule out anybody, but it's a question of policy. And then that's something which we're going to insist on for sure.
And this is what's maybe sometimes funny about politics, because the campaign can get almost downright dirty. We heard Yair Lapid's ice cream speech against the Prime Minister. And we heard the whole campaign of Yesh Atid is about corruption. Yair Lapid saying time and again that his party is the only one without any corrupt members of Knesset or candidates vying for a seat. At the end of the day, Yair Lapid and the rest of the Yesh Atid party, you yourself, are going to have to sit with these people in some kind of government.
But that's where the anti-corruption package comes into play. Mm-hmm. And focusing on the Prime Minister and the ice cream, that's a symbol. That's not the issue itself. I sat in the Finance Committee for a year and 8 months, and under Yair Lapid's leadership as the Minister of Finance, there were rules in place for how these transfers work. We knew every single Thursday what the transfers were going to be for the next week. We had time to read over them, look over them, and voted only after we knew exactly where every shekel was going. He was fired. 3 days later, we got an email, hundreds of millions of shekalim. The Prime Minister was the acting finance minister. No one had any idea where this money was going. That's corruption. Corruption is the taxpayers not knowing that someone is overseeing where their money is going and what it's going towards. And people in that room that day of that finance committee have been arrested over the last 2 months in this whole corruption scandal. We do believe that we're clean. We will work with people, assuming that they accept our guidelines for transparency. And there has to be a complete zero tolerance policy for corruption. Even a small little symbol. Mm-hmm. This past month, people might not even realize this, our salaries as member of Knesset, we're not even working in the Knesset, went up while the country is suffering and people can't finish the month. They gave us an increase in salary. For the last 7 months, we in Yesh Atid have been fighting that within the Knesset. We went to the Speaker, we went to the Knesset House Committee, and we said, this is ridiculous. We asked other parties to join us, and they didn't, because there is a culture in Israeli politics of, how we say in Hebrew, Magia li. I'm in the Knesset now, it comes to me, and I'll take my increase in salary. So this past February 1st, I got an increase in salary for no reason whatsoever, and all of us as a party decided we're donating our increase in salary to various charities, because there's no reason for it to come. That's corruption, mm-hmm. and that's what we're fighting against. So, of course, we have to sit together with people, but we're going to demand that there be transparency and there be a complete zero tolerance for the corruption that exists in government.
What's your dream legislation? What's the legislation that you decided a few years back to make Aliyah and become a Knesset member?
So, the truth is, 2 things that we've already done. It's not legislation, but the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, going to work, and even most importantly, getting general studies. That, for me, is a major accomplishment. community, because that's what I experienced growing up in the States, where you can be as religious as you want and study as much Torah as you want, but have basic general studies and be part of broader society. And we've done that, and we want to be able to continue increasing that in the school. So it's not a piece of legislation, but it's a cultural shift.
But there's so much more to do in that aspect.
That 100%. We want to be able to continue with that and get more and more Haredim to realize that there's nothing anti-religious about learning math and English and going out to work, that it should be part of our culture and it should be part of our value system to do so. The impact that has is not just financial. First of all, it takes them out of poverty. That's number one. Number two, the state is no longer supporting them, but they're contributing towards the state tax base. But number three, it generates unity. It breaks down barriers between Jews, because all of a sudden at the workplace, Haredim and secular people meet each other, and they all of a sudden realize one to the other, they're not bad people. I didn't realize what kind of people they were. We can get along with one another, and that's what brought me to politics to begin with, when I saw the breakdown of religious and secular in Beit Shemesh. So if I, on a national level, can work towards that, that's for sure the number one thing I want to continue working on is the employment of the ultra-Orthodox community, together with the general education. I'm also very into the environment, very into preventing the suffering of animals. Those are two niches which I really worked on in the Knesset, where others weren't really working on them. I think those are core Jewish values as well, which we as a Jewish state can unify around. So I have my long list of things that I want to continue working on, and God willing, we'll be able to.
What do you dislike most, dare I say hate most, about Israeli politics? And I mean, the list is probably long for many.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was shocked when the Speaker of the Knesset called me into his office and said that I'm being awarded the most, the member of Knesset who showed up to work and voted the most times on laws and sat in the plenum the most. I didn't understand it. I didn't set out to do that. It just happened. And then I realized there's a culture of you get to the position and then you're not as dedicated as I think you should be. So there's a certain laissez-faire attitude towards the job, which bothers me when I see people around me doing so. I have to say that in Yesh Atid, I think because we're newcomers to the scene, you don't really see it as much of it as an establishment in Israeli politics, the old politics, where there's sort of a lack of energy and vision and desire to get things done. That's the biggest thing for sure. I also see, though, how the corruption is possible, how people turn to you, they want to get off you favors, they want to win your favor, and you have to be very, very careful day in and day out to make sure that you don't go anywhere near any of that.
And before we end, just a little bit about yourself. You have to say you don't see an American-born member of Knesset every day. I think you're the first in the last 30 years to be in the Knesset. Why?
Because I want to make a difference, because that's a place where you can change. And it's not just our country, it's our people. One thing I've learned this last 2 years is we really can make a change. It takes time. You have to be more patient than perhaps I want to be. You have to learn how to navigate the system. But to be able, the ability to wake up every single day and go to work and know that you're working to change the future of Israel and the future of the Jewish people, there's nothing more satisfying than that. So that enables me to focus on the good and sort of weed out all of the negativity and all of the challenges that come with the position, to know that you're really able to make a difference.
And if you don't get reelected, what holds the future for Rabbi Dov Lipman?
I have no doubt that there are many opportunities available to me to keep doing the kind of work that I've been doing for Israel.
In Israel?
In Israel, on many different levels. But I'm still very confident that we'll wake up on March 18th and I'll be once again reelected as a member of Knesset.
We asked you to choose a song. You chose Ari Goldwag's Am Echad, not the most mainstream Israeli song, I have to say.
Correct. It's a song that when I first heard it, it touched me very deeply. Just the idea of Am Echad, that we're one nation, Shir Echad, that we all should be singing the same song, Bo Achi Ten Liyad, give me your hand. That's what I view actually in Yesh Atid. It's religious and secular, all different backgrounds working together on the issues instead of being one against the other. For me, that's the biggest internal challenge in Israel today. If we get that right, all the problems will fall away.
Member of Knesset Rabbi Dov Lipman, thank you for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
אני כשאני בנפרד, כי אני יהודי לא הולך לבדי, רק איתך